question was, when we were talking about, came up when we were talking about treadmill, that I suggested lifting the grade a little bit so that they were sort of not forced, but they were actually passively put into that rib cage over pelvis position. It really mimics the ski jump. And so, yes, that's exactly what I do with my female athletes who are experiencing incontinence when they are running. The typical female running pattern is high chest, bum tuck. They stand is how they walk, is how they run. And then we also then see that they drive the running from the front. Okay, they're sort of pulling themselves versus propelling themselves with the glutes. So this just fits right in with everything that we've been talking about this weekend. They're not utilizing glutes very well in this position. They can't be. So they end up overusing hamstrings. Does this sound familiar? Like it's all the same stuff, okay? So they're here, which means their breath is usually high, okay? They're not getting that rhythmic interaction between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor and the tummy. Frequently, they are also gripping their abs. Because that's what they've been told to do. So they're running with gripped abs. So it's not so simple to say, all you got to do is, actually, so I'm going to say this in a different way. It is actually that simple in some cases. If you just create a new environment for that relationship, okay, you're also creating more access to glutes. Like a lot of things are happening when you do that. So, and remember, when our pelvis is more into that optimized position, we've put the pelvis, we put the pelvic floor or the recruitment, we predispose that recruitment more of the anterior when we're in this position. There's more structural support under in the pelvic floor because the urogenital diaphragm is actually in that front half. We have more structural support. We have the pubic symphysis here. You're doing a lot of things when you do that to affect that urinary incontinence. Same thing for our kids. We already talked about that. If they're running with their weight behind them, it's the same thing. Every time they land, their access is where they have their weight. It's more toward the back, so they're not going to have as much access in the front. But let me just say one more layer to that is, what I'm hoping to be doing with that position change is changing their access to that system, to that deep system we've been talking about. But also, I'm changing the demand on that system. Okay, when you are running, if you're running like this and you've got your heel striking far in front of you, then when you hit, we actually have some information that's about 6 to 8 times your body weight. That's how we measure ground reaction forces in running, is multiples of your body weight. So if you land with a heel strike way in front of you, that's 6 to 8 times your body weight. If, however, we've trained you to move here, okay, then you're landing with a little bit more of your body weight over top of the heel. You're more balanced. That ground reaction force is about 2 to 4 times your body weight. So by simply reducing the demand on the system, I may change your incontinence somewhat during your running. Does that make sense? So I'm doing 2 things by doing that. I'm changing the demand, but I'm also changing what's happening with your access to that system that helps to control it. The other thing is I am with the diaphragm pelvic floor. If I have trained them in this idea, guess what? That when you impact, when you hit, that pelvic floor goes through an excursion. Okay, we know that every muscle in our body, when we impact, when you jump, your quad moves through a lengthening and a shortening. That's how we attenuate ground reaction forces. Pelvic floor is no different. It is a muscle. So it goes through excursion. But what I've been teaching my patient is that to make the pelvic floor go through excursions again. Teach it to respond to pressures. And so it's learning to act in a way that's more functional. And so we've done a lot of this. So it's more than just it is that simple. By leaning, I access all of those pieces, and I've been teaching those pieces to them. But there's a lot that goes behind that simple a change. But honestly, that's why I tell my patients, let's lean and breathe. And I use visual cues. Just everything that we just did, that's what I do with my patients. I don't want them running looking at the horizon. I ask them to run with their eyes about 20 feet ahead of them. Guess what that does? If they're looking at the horizon, they're here. If they're looking about 20 feet ahead, they're looking down, and I'm not overusing abs to add pressure down while they're running. Okay, so there's all sorts of pieces of this puzzle